Friends, the last time I attempted a winter diorama, the results were sub-zero to say the least. But tonight, we have a pretty nice model in our hands, so let's do our best to give it a proper snowy home and try to achieve the best result we possibly can. Let's start with the outline of the base, and in this case, I'm again using a cardboard cutout as a template. I chose an oval shape to eliminate all the empty corners in the scene. The cardboard acts as a guide for the hot wire cutter, as the wire is hot enough to go through the styrofoam, but not enough to affect the cardboard. With this step, we have the most important thing out of the way. But what are those red circles, you might ask? Well, these are honorable spots for these mind-blowing fir trees from RT Diorama, which are completely 3D printed. They're a combination of 3D scanning and digital sculpting, and the level of detail and authenticity is off the wall. I can't imagine a DIY technique that would replicate the pine needles with this level of accuracy. They also come with large printed bases, but these are quite clumsy as we move forward, so the best choice, in my opinion, is to cut them off, drill a hole in the trunk, add a piece of thick wire, and handle them this way. Much better. Next up, let's give the terrain some volume and elevation. I dry-fitted two slopes made from various styrofoam offcuts and some rudimentary shaping. Toothpicks will hold them firmly in place, which is exactly what we need to cut them down to the exact shape of the base. Once we have that out of the way, we can shape them further with the aid of a handheld hot cutter or any other tool at our disposal. When I was satisfied with the job, I glued them permanently in place with PVA, using the toothpicks as a guide. It's also important to make sure the sides are nice and clean, so a little bit of sanding is essential at this time. My handheld cutter also has this engraving attachment, which is excellent for additional shaping. In this case, I'm using it to mark out the rutted forest road in front of the tank. This tool is also amazing when you need to integrate specific details such as rocks into the groundwork. Just melt a hole that's large enough and you'll be able to fit whatever into any position you want. Before we get to the fun stuff, let's treat the sides. But unlike all of my recent dioramas, we're not covering them with oak veneer. Instead, I'll achieve the smooth finish with acrylic wood putty. I'm doing it this way partially because I want to show that there are other ways that lead to a nice finish as well, and partially because I just wasn't in the mood for laminating. So we smear the putty with a spatula all over the foam, and then we have to wait for a while before it dries. The process can be sped up with an airbrush, but it'll take a while nonetheless. A sanding sponge is ideal for the job. We have to work carefully though. We don't want to introduce more imperfections, and we also don't want to expose the styrofoam. There are two things that you can be sure of. There will be a ton of dust, and you'll have to repeat the filling process multiple times. However, the final result is definitely satisfying. To seal the job, a thick layer of acrylic primer will do nicely, and we can use that to sand and polish the sides even further. But let's now get to the fun stuff. As usual, I'll cover the entire groundwork with a nice layer of AK acrylic mud paste. This will smooth out the rough cuts in the styrofoam and, most importantly, provide a nice gritty surface for all the upcoming layers. I often use it as a primer for groundwork, so to say. Case in point, the chocolate mousse from VMS aka Smart Mud 2.0 isn't the most adhesive material in the world and benefits greatly from the gritty layer of paste underneath. But the low adhesion and softness have a purpose. They actually make it the best medium for the groundwork, and I mean when it comes to sculpting those delicate terrain features and whatnot, and you can get it directly from VMS or Michigan Toy Soldier if you use the links and sales coupons in the video description. But hold on, there's more. The paste is absolutely bonkers for making track impressions and fitting the model to the ground, but before I do that, I like to sprinkle the surface with a bit of real earth from my garden, trademark, because then the texture in those ruts will be more realistic. I quickly glued the texture in place just so I wouldn't accidentally blow it off, but the real meat comes in the form of this realistic forest texture, trademark. This, my friends, is a total game changer and proof that there's no universal ground texture. It all depends on the type of landscape you're recreating. So what's the magical powder, you ask? Gardening substrate. Anything that's intended for plants, the stuff you buy in bags, that's the good stuff. It contains small roots, pieces of decomposed plants, but it's not suitable in its raw form. What I'm using is sifted substrate. I just ran it through a metal sieve, the one that's used for tea. And hey, the other magical invention from VMS is the ballast freeze glue, which has excellent capillary action and dries into a rock-hard finish. It won't get reactivated with enamel thinners or anything and spreads through the substrate like surface tension was a thing from fairy tales. These two products are an absolute must-have, so check them out. Once the ground was dry, it was time to start painting. A quick coat of the brand new VMS primer on the sides, which will make everything nice and clean, and a thin layer of pre-dusting on the ground with a mixture of Tamiya paints that I used previously on the tank. That's just a very quick base coat which unifies all of the different materials, but the real effect will be done with AK enamel paints. Again, the same ones I used on the tank, because we need to achieve visual harmony between the ground and the model, otherwise it would look out of place. But compared to the weathering process on the model, the application is slightly different. On tanks, we should start with the lightest, dry tones and work our way towards the darker colors representing damp mud. In this case, we are starting with the middle color representing wet ground. Then we switch to the darkest color, which I used as a pin wash on the model, and apply it in the deepest textures. This way, we can subtly outline the fine details on the ground. All those tiny stones, roots and whatnot. And finally, we can use the lightest color to subtly bring out some of the raised textures. This way, we'll achieve a beautiful three-dimensional look, or rather, will enhance the three-dimensionality of our groundwork. But it's important to not get carried away with it, because we can quickly make the ground look too light for our needs. It helps a lot when you put the model on the ground and use it as a reference for the effect. And of course, it's not forbidden to go back and forth and add more darker tones in some places. It's all just about finding the right balance. Before we move on, let's quickly paint the stones as well. For these, I have a universal method that works pretty well every single time. The point is to start with a dark brown color as a base, and then layer different grayish, brown or sandy tones on top of it. We can mix them together with the wet blending method or apply them in separate layers for different results. I'm not stating any specific paint callouts because I highly encourage everyone to try and develop their own color palette. It's just important to avoid cold gray and white colors. So that's the basic groundwork finished, and you might have noticed that I'm doing things differently this time. Instead of building the entire base and then painting it, I'm finishing each layer separately. The next one will be a layer of dry, trampled grass and pine needles from those trees. Dry sea balls from AK are an amazing source for these effects. I just made sure to cut it short, like 2 mm or so, for the pine needles. Even the color itself looks pretty spot on, right? But this time, gluing was slightly more high-tech. I soaked them first with alcohol, which has like negative surface tension, and I did it to ensure each pine needle stayed where it was. And to add more volume and make the pile more fluffy, once I flooded it with VMS ballast freeze, I sprinkled some more seagrass on top of the wet surface. For trampled grass, I used whatever offcuts I had in the box. The length isn't as important here, it's the random placement and texture that's our objective. I didn't know at first what to expect from this layered approach, so to say, where you paint and finish each effect separately, but after this step, I knew I was on the right track. I also added a few tufts which were simply ripped out of the ball, dipped in PVA glue, and planted on the ground. As you'll see later, these played a major role once I started applying the snow. But the raw color of the seagrass wouldn't cut it for me. I wanted some visual depth and to adjust its tone a little. Diluted ochre oil paint was just the thing, and I made sure to have a reference image in front of me at all times. Fake shadows can be added with an enamel wash, and again, this is the advantage of the ballast freeze, which won't get weakened by enamel thinners. PVA glue is also rock solid and works pretty well, but for example, gravel and sand fixer, which is alcohol based, isn't so sturdy and works better on armor models where you have to work carefully with it. Another good detail can be sourced from dried roots and small plants, which you can find in nature. Forest floor is always littered with dead branches. I think there's no need to discuss that, but once I glued them in place, I adjusted their look with paint. Note that I didn't say I painted them, because I didn't. I just adjusted their look and integrated them into the groundwork with limited amounts of paint. And for example, I left the exposed wood without bark in its raw, natural color. And a funny side note, I used the same paints here as I used for the stones. Same color palette, different result. I made 2 rudimentary fence posts using this method as well, because at first I wasn't sure if I wanted to add a fence, but once I had everything painted, I was sure the scene was missing some additional detail. So what do you think about it so far? I hate to blow my own trumpet, but this is hands down the most authentic looking groundwork I've done. And all it needed was a different approach. It's such a shame that most of it will be covered in snow, but hey, it's a great experience for future dioramas. So let's get to the main ordeal, a legit looking blanket of snow. Everything will be achieved with these dedicated AK products, and I'll start with snow sprinkles. This is an interesting paste which dries to a grayish, semi-translucent finish with visible sparkles. In the past, I relied exclusively on this product, and in the case of my Leningrad diorama, ruined the entire effect with it. It's a great medium for slushy, melting snow or hard, frozen snow, and in this case, it'll act as a base layer for the final effect. It's also quite viscous, which makes it easy to apply even over complex surfaces such as this one, and super easy to blend. Basically, if you blend the edges with water, it'll create this smooth transition as the paste becomes more opaque the thicker it gets. We just don't have to be afraid to cover large portions of our groundwork with it. Here's how it looks once it dries, and this would work like a dream for a late winter diorama when the snow starts to melt and the tank is completely muddy, but that's not our case here. So let's switch to these two, which I already used for the snow on the tank. Snow is a thick, opaque acrylic paste, and microballoons are very fine powder. We'll be using them in conjunction, so it's essential to work in smaller sections. The application is pretty simple. Apply the acrylic snow over the frozen layer, making sure to cover a smaller area, and blend it with water. While it is still wet, sprinkle with microballoons for that slightly textured, foamy look, and blow the excess away. That's it. This will represent the fresh, powdery snow. The type of snow you had fun in as a kid. You know, powdery snow, lots of fun. Melting snow, not fun. But I'll be honest with you, after my last experience with a snowy diorama, I was hesitant and doubted my progress every minute. This entire step was an emotional roller coaster for me, where in one moment I was sure I messed up the whole diorama, and 5 minutes later I was giving myself attaboys knowing that it would become something special. What can I say? Bad experience from the past and just general lack of experience will just do that to you, I guess. After all, I think this is only my third proper winter diorama. and definitely the first one where I was attempting a heavy layer of snow. But truth be told, if I do it again, I'll be more confident. So, like I said, most of the groundwork is gone, but check out how the tufts of grass created small focal points without snow, and how they add some visual detail to the scene. But let's make the snow effect look even better. In the last video, I made a few points about the setting for the model being a cold, freezing winter where muddy puddles would freeze over. But I still couldn't resist the temptation, so I mixed a murky mixture from still water and a hint of grayish-brown acrylic. When it comes to these small puddles, using epoxy resin is a total overkill, and it might actually lead to more headache than fun. This stuff dries quickly, and you can build up the volume in multiple layers in less than an hour. The application is also easy, and the results are more than good if I do say so myself. I also made this messy snow mixture from sprinkles, microballoons, and a bit of tap water. This stuff will help us achieve two goals. One is the subtle frost on the vegetation, which adds a nice delicate touch to the overall winter setting, and the second is really exciting, enhancing the ruts with traces of mushy snow. I've said it in the past when I was buying these products with my own money and my opinions were unbiased, and I'll say it again now when I'm partnered up with AK. These products just work perfectly and are a worthy investment if you're into dioramas. So if you're still doubting, go to the affiliate link in the video description and use my sales coupon to get a better price. Each purchase helps me out and you won't regret it. So that's the groundwork finished. I added some wires to the fence, painted them with rusty acrylics, and you know what? I think we can glue the tank in place as well. A generous amount of PVA glue under the tracks, and the tank won't go anywhere ever. Let's now finish the trees, and oh boy, was I wrong with my approach. I thought, hey, they're extremely complicated, so I need a dark brown base coat for all those fake shadows and whatnot. But that's not how I've been painting this year, and I quickly realized why this led to the problems I encountered. So I started by airbrushing the trunks and branches in a mixture of Tamiya acrylics, and this was all fine. But I should have used a neutral gray primer, because as soon as I started airbrushing the pine needles, I realized the paint was becoming too dark, and I would need multiple layers and lighter paint mixtures to make them look alright for the scene. So essentially, a job that could have taken me an hour took me more than twice the time. And to add insult to injury, I should have painted the trunks afterward because there was so much green and blue overspray that I had to go over them one more time. Stuff that I learned when I was airbrushing my dioramas, but I forgot about it here. But hey, in the end, I think we can call it a success. Moving on, I finished the trunks with a dark wash and some acrylics. Ideally, I would dry brush the bark texture with multiple colors, just as I did on the base, but the complex nature of the trees made any precise painting pretty much impossible, so I had to keep the effect basic. And lastly, they would look totally out of place if there was no snow on them, and even though it felt wrong covering those incredible pine needles, the result ultimately made the trees look even more interesting. This was the same method I used on the tank, acrylic snow sprinkled with microballoons, working my way one branch at a time. Then I could glue them both to the base with a bit of super glue, and you might say that was it, but actually a few finishing touches had to be added. And then the edges of the base had to be cleaned up with a fresh coat of black. I did this first with a paintbrush around the edges of the ground, and the rest was finished with an airbrush and the amazing VMS black primer. And with that, my mission was over, my friends. Let me know your thoughts, because my own opinions about the result might be skewed by the sheer level of stoke that I feel when I look at the diorama. Achieving a decent looking winter scene with snow that doesn't look like Pablo Escobar's birthday party gone wrong is a huge achievement for me, and my tainted experience from the last winter diorama has been fixed. I'm also blown away by how far the technologies have progressed in this hobby, because now we suddenly have these uncanny looking lifelike trees that you can just buy and use straight from the box. I think these trees elevate the diorama to a whole new level, because they literally add some elevation to the scene, and having vertical elements is very important if you take your composition game seriously. As I said in the last video, I wasn't sure if this tank was photographed in Finland or around Leningrad, so hopefully the scenery is universal enough to suit both scenarios and make the whole thing somewhat historically accurate. I'll also try to upload some pictures of the finished piece to my website, which is my online portfolio where I'm also selling my models, so make sure to stop by and take a look. And also, it's getting warm outside, so if the diorama wasn't enough to cool you down, go check out my merch at the Plastic Invasion store. Currently, we have 2 designs on black t-shirts, and I'm totally in love with the new one with my logo. I wore it when I was at Motion Show and felt like a real grown-up YouTuber. Both links are down below. Anyway, the next project is gonna be close to my heart and extremely personal, and I can't wait to show it to you all. In the meantime, thank you for watching, because if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be here and the upcoming video wouldn't be possible either. You'll see what I mean once you see it. Being able to make these videos full-time is mainly possible thanks to the help of my amazing patrons, because YouTube often behaves in the most unexpected ways, and Patreon is my safety net. My whole Patreon page is like a Night Shift magazine subscription, as I post there pretty often, and you'll get updates from my workbench where I share my thoughts and insights. We can get in touch through DMs, comments and emails. I'm posting 1 week early ad-free videos, and those stay there forever, so you can always get back to them at any time. I also have some extra goodies such as 3D models which you can use for detailing your projects, a bunch of real-life references for nature, old buildings and so on, and last but not least, these high-resolution studio photos which show the diorama in more detail than video ever could. All your support is appreciated but not expected. Anyway, if I said anything more about the next video, I'd have to spoil it, so I'll just get down to work and bring it to you as fast as I can. Again, let me know your thoughts about this one, and if you watched it all the way to the end, comment, "Don't eat the yellow snow," so I'll know you made it all the way here. Thank you so much for watching, I love you all, but please keep building your models, don't just collect them in your stash. Cheers!